there, all you queens and cryptids, and welcome to Queer and Loathing, the only podcast that migrates south for the winter. I'm your host, Brett Bodie, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts.
I'm Mel.
I'm Samantha.
And today, we're talking about Midsommar / Midsommar / Midsommar.
Oh, I like that.
By Ari Aster from 2018, I believe.
Sure.
How do you say it?
Midsommar.
Okay.
I say Midsommar.
I say Midsommar.
Wow, I'm glad we got that out of the way. Y'all, this movie is so good.
Yes. That's a big yes. And I think it actually just grows on me the more I watch it.
Oh, it's so good. I guess we should do our thing. So, Samantha, how'd you experience this movie?
Oh, yeah. I watched it the first time during COVID at some point. I think one of the podcasts I was listening to at the time was watching scary movies. And so I heard about Midsommar because this was also when I'd watched Hereditary. Still recovering from that one.
Yeah.
Fair.
So I saw that, then I saw it another time with my godsister because I was like, you got to see this girl. And I loved this movie. I loved this movie then. I love this movie now. I watched it twice recently, once during COVID brain, so I had to redo it with my less COVID brain. So.
What's a godsister?
Oh.
It's like your godparent's child?
We share a godmother, and then my mom is also one of her godmothers.
Huh, okay.
So my mom's her godmother, and then we share one.
I don't think I have a godparent, except God.
Always.
Okay,
The
sorry.
Allfather.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just love this movie. Mel, what about you?
I don't remember. I don't think I saw this in theaters. I loved it when I first saw it. Not my favorite Ari. I don't know. I cannot tell you which Ari Aster movie is the best. They're all the best. But I think this one specifically, I've liked it more the more I've watched it. And I think this is the one I've seen the most. Because it's such an easy rewatch, but then also can really sit down. Hereditary is not an easy rewatch.
No.
Hereditary is like physically, like, it's like you're going through an ordeal.
It's grueling. Hereditary is grueling to watch.
I will only watch it again for this pod. It was fantastic. I, again, am still recovering.
Yeah, that's fair.
And Beau Was Afraid I saw in theaters. So, but this one, I don't know. But I rewatched it for this, and I was like taking notes. And I felt like I was like a film student. Like there's just so much to notice. Like if you really look at it, like you can just watch the movie and be like, oh, it's just like a weird, creepy cult movie. And there's, people being picked off and what's going on. Like you could really just take it that surface level and think it's fine. But if you actually like pay attention to this movie, it is literally a masterpiece.
I get something new out of it every time I watch it.
Brett?
Yeah, so I did see this in theaters. I've seen all of Ari Aster's movies in theaters. And I gotta say, I didn't love it the first time I saw it. I really liked it. But I walked out being like, I think it was really good. I'm not sure if I loved it. I gotta watch it again and like think about it.
Yeah.
But I didn't walk out being like, whoa. Like, because I walked out of Hereditary being like,
Hereditary hits
that
you
shattered
hard.
my world and it was amazing. And we were talking about like atmospheric versus scary in last week's episode about Longlegs.
Check it out.
But Hereditary, I think, is the only movie I can really think of from like the past several years that had atmosphere to spare, but also was scary to where like I didn't want to cross the living room to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night in my apartment because I was like, there's going to be a floating Toni Collette there.
I think
She's going to get me. And I was like actually scared.
Yeah.
Almost in like a way you are as like a child, which I hadn't been
or
and haven't since.
Someone who's normally a normal scared of horror.
Yes.
A normal scaredy.
Sure.
It's next level.
Yeah, but it got that reaction out of me. So, but the more I watch Midsommar, the more I get out of it, the more I like appreciate it. So now I would say I love it.
I actually remember I did see it in theaters because I remember that scene on the big screen when it was them walking through like purgatory, right? They go through the woods into the clearing.
Yes.
Where everything happens. And I do remember
the big
seeing
sun
that
gate thing.
because it was so beautifully shot.
Yeah.
So I do remember that now. So I did see it in theaters. But like you, I didn't really I knew it was like beautiful.
Yes.
But I didn't see like exactly how meticulously crafted it is because it is meticulous. It's so like detailed.
Also, apparently, I think that this making Midsommar almost like killed Ari Aster because he like got greenlit like after the success of Hereditary, and it was released the next year. So he did like the whole production in a year after just having done a grueling production. And apparently it was just so fucking intense. Like the turnaround was so brutal that he had to like go into hiding for a while.
And then he came
after
out with
promoting Midsommar.
Beau is Afraid, which is like the most I am not well movie
Yeah.
I've ever seen.
Hey, can I read you guys a quote that a very wise man once said?
Yeah.
I hope Ari Aster never gets the therapy he so clearly needs, so he keeps making shit like this. Brett Bodie, 2018, after seeing Hereditary.
Yeah.
He seems, I don't know if he is, he seems so fucked in the head from
Yeah.
his movies, like more than anyone I can think of. And I love it, and bless you. Hail Satan, mwah, Ari Aster, like, love you.
Yeah,
Don't go to therapy.
He's when I think of like the greatest filmmakers of all time, it's not like he's just 3 for 3. Like he's 3 like masterpieces in a row. Like I know people have issues with Beau is Afraid, and it's fine.
It's maybe the ultimate, like, this movie is not for everyone.
It's a 1-star or
movie.
5-star movie.
Yeah.
There's no in between. You either thought it was amazing or you're like, this was the worst and I hated it. And fine.
And you're right, either way.
Yeah, it's fine. I get it. I'm not going to argue with you. I just think it was a masterpiece. But like Midsommar, like I would love to just get into what makes this special.
Let's go.
So this is in the genre of folk horror, which is something that I think is sort of like a hidden gem.
Yes.
Like
I agree
people
with
who
you.
are really into horror, like we know horror. We were talking about like shitty Nicolas Cage movies last episode in our Long
I
Legs
almost
episode.
brought up, but
Wicker Man is
Yeah.
like famously bad, but the original Wicker Man is incredible.
I'm
Like,
glad you brought up the original Wicker Man, starring Christopher Lee
oh, he's so good. He's
as
the
the
villain.
cult leader.
Yeah,
and,
he's the villain.
Oh,
So do I watch it?
It's also
Yes.
a musical.
yeah,
Like it's
it is a musical.
really a
Oh.
strange but like very effective.
And definitely watch it.
This movie just takes place entirely in daylight, except the beginning.
Except for the beginning. Yeah.
Except for the beginning.
And
Where-
one nightmare scene, and then one scene in the director's cut.
I don't know if
It's
I've
always at night.
seen the director's cut.
That's all I've seen recently, because that's the one I own.
Ah. Yeah, Brett has a beautiful Blu-ray.
Director's cut release from A24. It has a booklet with a bunch of runes and beautiful drawings, and a foreword by fucking Martin Scorsese, like sucking Ari Aster's dick, basically calling him like God's gift to filmmaking.
I don't think it's super scary, but that's personally just my opinion, man. Like, it's scary in ways that are not jump scary. Like, there's a few, but it's really like, I don't know, Sam, is this scary to you?
No.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I
Sam
find it.
approves.
This is watchable.
I find it very scary in like an abstract psychological
Yes.
sense of like if
Yeah.
this like the idea of this happening is so horrible, but not in like a horror movie way of like, oh, I need to leave the lights on when I go to bed tonight.
Yeah,
It's not
there's-
scary in that way.
Swedish people are not coming to your home.
You'd sure hope
Allegedly.
not.
They're not coming to your home to what is it called? The
Atestupan.
Astestupan or whatever.
Oh.
They say it like 5 different ways, and I think there's 10 other ways to say
It's
it.
fine.
Atestupa, Atestupa,
Ades-
Atestupan.
Atetupa?
Yep.
That's not the right way.
You're valid.
Oh my god.
And the way you misspeak words is doubly so.
I don't speak Swedish.
You'll stumble into saying it right.
It's fine. Like, okay, so this movie, for those of you who haven't seen it, we have Florence Pugh. I think this is the first role I saw her in.
This was her breakout.
And we start the movie with a horrific scene. I have like a lot of notes about this because
Yeah, we should talk about the opening in depth because it's
Yeah.
so important for the rest of the movie.
it sets up literally everything we're about to see. So her name is Danny.
Danny
And
Arter.
And she is like exchanging, it looks like IMs, Google Plus chats.
Yeah, something.
With
Some
her
chat.
sister, who is being scary and
and
saying
has stopped responding.
has stopped responding, saying things like I love you and
She's like, everything's going dark. Mom and Dad are coming with me.
yeah,
Goodbye.
like very ominous shit you don't want to see. And she is simultaneously realizing this is really bad and also gaslighting herself that she's
Mhm.
overreacting.
Yeah.
Because you can tell this is a woman who has been told so many times that she's too dramatic, that she's overreacting, when in fact, she's being entirely reasonable. Like throughout this
Yes.
movie, throughout this movie, every time she is being subtly, not even overtly, insisted, like, or insinuated by her boyfriend or like others, or even just in her own head that she's like being too much, she starts apologizing and backing up. And in the opening scene, she's kind of doing it to herself. She's talking to her shitty boyfriend on the phone who's out at a bar, not with her. She's alone. She's talking to some friend we never meet.
Yeah.
And her friend is like, you're being valid. And she's like, no. Boyfriend is super dismissive and crappy. He wants to break up with her.
His friends want him to break up with her.
Well, specifically 2 of them.
Yeah.
Want him to break up with her because she's like a bummer. And they're grad students and she's an undergrad. She is reacting to training that I think society gives a lot of women, telling her that she's being overreacting.
And she, I think, is hoping that she is overreacting,
Yes.
which is partially why she calls Christian, the boyfriend, so that he will dismiss that and talk her down, so like maybe it can help control her anxiety.
It opens with her calling her parents' house and it shows them and it looks like they're just sleeping.
Yeah.
Y'all, they're not sleeping.
They are not.
The sister, like, she carbon monoxided them.
Yeah, so she is like
set up like
tubes. Run tubes through the house so it connects from the car's tailpipe in the garage
to her parents' door.
Yes, like under her parents' door. So she like filled their room, and
then
there's another hose
directly
that she
into
taped,
her face.
that she taped over her mouth and nose.
She looks like a ghoul.
Like there's like vomit like soaking through the like duct tape
Her
and like
eyes
under her
are
shirt.
all like
her eyes are 2 different colors because like
one just exploded.
Yeah, and
all
it is
capillaries.
One of just the most like nightmarish and upsetting shots. And with the music playing, you're just like, oh man, it is so effective. And like, what a way to start off your movie, because that's like the end of the first scene basically.
And I like having the contrast built in. Like, we know the rest of the movie is just going to be in light pretty much the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And we start out at her darkest moment.
Yeah, because her sister is a family annihilator. And then that's it. And that's all the family that I think Danny had. So now she's just alone in the world with her terrible boyfriend.
She's isolated. I have that note. Like, there's this theme of isolation that she's feeling throughout. I mean, that's her entire drive throughout the end of the movie too. I mean, I see, like, I know I'm sort of sick in the brain, but I see this movie as just like a beautiful, inspiring story about like a woman reconnecting to society. Like, okay, yeah, they're bad people, but it's like really good for her.
And like letting out her built up emotions that nobody's letting her get out.
She lets loose. When throughout the movie, and we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, but throughout the movie, she removes herself, right? She starts having a panic attack, and she'll go to the bathroom in the airplane. She'll go to the little bathroom shack in the mushroom field.
Yes.
That, like, she'll find a place, like, where she
can be alone with her feelings.
And she cannot really do that at the commune.
No.
And when they find her, they just want to, like, scream with her, which is something that she has not been able to feel maybe ever in her life, because I am guessing her entire childhood was about her sister.
Yeah, I definitely get that sense.
You get that vibe. Like, the sister still lives at home.
Probably has a history of violence, I would imagine.
And something so intentional as what she did. Like,
right, that takes so much planning.
With the hoses.
Right, she didn't just, like, stabinate somebody. She, like...
Stabinate.
She hosinated them instead.
Oh.
She's a woman in STEM. She did, like, some engineering.
She really is.
No, there's
Shut
there's this line that just, like, I really think is her point in this movie. And it's, what's his name? What's the Swedish guy's name? Pele. It's what Pele says to her when he's like, does he make you feel held?
Yes, I totally agree.
And you can tell this is a woman who does not feel held. Like, she's...
And maybe never has.
And never has. Again, like, I think she probably had, like, perfectly nice parents, but her parents were just always focused on the sister. Like, she's gone off to college on her own. She's an undergrad who's just hanging out with, like, her
like shitty
stoner
fucking
grad school boyfriend loser and his
awful
awful friends. And, like, they don't like her. And she's just so, like, friendly and awkward. Like, we know
it really is heartbreaking.
Like, it sucks for her.
It does.
And she's doing that thing that's so common, which is further isolating yourself because you don't want to be, like, the negative center of attention.
That's what she's saying also on the phone with her friend in the beginning, I think. It's like, I don't want to be a burden. Like, I don't want to be too needy.
And she even
like, well, girl, but you do have needs.
You do, exactly.
So I don't know what to tell you.
But she doesn't even like know, right? Like she's so used to just being a burden is what she feels like. And that's what she feels like to her shitty boyfriend is she's like a burden. And she's like, I'm very lucky to have you. To like the worst guy.
Oh.
But I like that he's bad in ways that are not like unbelievable or cartoonishly evil.
No, he's so believable.
He's
I'm
so
like,
passive.
he's this certain like very specific brand of just like shitty boyfriend. I don't even really know how to describe it. Just like
he's just passive. He's like, he's not in it. He doesn't love her.
And that's the worst part is like, I almost understand him at the beginning. Like the very first scene, it's just like, he doesn't want to dump her because like she's going through a hard time because she's worried about her sister and stuff. But like, he doesn't love her and he should break up with her. But then when her family dies, then he feels like he can't. Then he's just like, trapped in it. And I get why he feels that way. But it is so shitty for both of them. And then he is awful for a lot of other reasons.
He's just like not there for her. Like he's physically sometimes there hugging her.
Yeah.
And he'll like make the modicum of effort, like the lowest amount of effort.
Like he'll like technically like check in and ask if she's okay, even though he's like
he
not
doesn't really want to
listening.
know. Yeah, he doesn't care. He just doesn't want to be like bad, but he just has no agency. He's so like cowardly and shitty.
So cowardly.
This guy, like, he doesn't hit her. He doesn't even say mean things to her.
No, he doesn't say mean things to her.
It's literally like, I have another quote here where she says, I love you. And he says, all right. Like, that's who he is.
Oh.
And this is all she has after she loses her entire family, everything she's known.
She's just like sitting there numb. She's not sleeping. Christian comes in and is like, hey, I'm going to duck out and go to this party. And she's like, oh, I'll come. Because she just wants to do literally anything besides just like sit in her apartment and feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes to that party and finds out, oh my God, in one of a million infuriating scenes like this.
That they're going to what they think is going to be a Swedish orgy.
In 2 weeks.
And
she didn't know at all.
Yeah.
And she finds this out at a party. It's because like someone lets it slip. And she just, and her acting, y'all, is so good. The way she like, you can see her receive and process information and like, you can see how she feels and then you can see how she's trying to mask those feelings.
And like, it's not her fault, but she responds as if she is taking the responsibility. She's like, no, she ends up apologizing to him.
She apologizes to him because she's like, no, I'm sorry. I overreacted. Like, I just wanted to talk about it. It's fine that you can, it's fine that you go. I just wish you told me.
That's so 21-year-old girlfriend with 27-year-old boyfriend energy. Just saying.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. That's exactly what it is.
Where he's like a piece of shit. And she's like, I'm sorry. No, you're right. I shouldn't have reacted. I shouldn't have been so upset. Like, of course. No, this sounds amazing.
Yeah, you should go.
You should go. That's amazing. You should. And he's like, well, I won't go. But like, of course he's going.
Right.
It's so realistic.
It is.
And that's not the only time he's gone like, oh, I won't take the drugs because you don't want to. And we won't do it. They won't do it either because you don't want to.
Right. Oh, I hate
that scene where he's like, oh, like, I'm just going to wait with Danny. Like, you guys go ahead. And nobody wants to. So, like, he's, like, pretending to be nice and, like, wait with Danny. But what he's really doing is putting her on the spot in front of the friends so that they also are pressuring her.
He knows she'll just collapse under
it.
She's like a doormat.
Oh, it's so sad.
Grossly manipulative, but he still feels like he's a good guy.
Right. And then the next scene, it's like him with his friends, and he's like, okay, so Danny's coming up right now, and she's coming to Sweden. But she drops that bombshell.
But she probably won't come.
Yeah.
Because he's still such a coward that he can't even...
though he knows that she is coming at this point. Like, she probably has her ticket. And I'm like, how could anyone spend time with this horrible person?
Lives on procrastination. And I'm a procrastinator, but not to that extent.
I'm a procrastinator if it's going to fuck up my own life, but like not if it's going to like ruin everyone else's day every day.
I mean, his friends also have friends.
No, they deserve him as a friend, honestly. Like,
I was saying, it's like the worst three dudes. Like
nightmare blunt rotation.
Yes, nightmare.
Like the worst dudes ever.
Like the only one that I would want to hang out with is the one from the murder cult. Like Pele seems fine.
Yeah.
He seems like a nice guy.
Pele seems nice. Yeah, I
hate
thought the same thing. Yeah, I could hang out with him, but like
He can draw a pretty portrait.
he can.
So
But,
sweet.
like, also shout out to Will Poulter
I do love him.
as what's his character's name? Mark. Known as like eyebrow guy, I guess.
Yeah.
Although he's had to
I
grow
think
up.
he was in like the Black Mirror movie.
Yes, he
Yes.
was.
Bandersnatch,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's done a ton of stuff.
He's so good
And he is
as this
so,
annoying.
oh my God, like he is so great in this movie because I'm like, you've probably met this guy.
Yes.
He's always vaping and just like always bitching and always horny, but just like as a gross little like,
Yes, I've met these
Gremlin
gremlins.
man,
He's
yeah.
a gremlin man.
and he does it so well. And it's like, he's just so charismatic that like, even though I hate the character, I'm so entertained by him.
He's the kind of guy that just thinks like people want to hear about him like pretending he has sex.
Yes.
Like no
Right.
one wants to hear you talk about this. And then the Cheaty,
Yeah.
I don't remember his character's
Cheaty.
name.
Cheaty.
Cheaty. Like he's like thinks he's smarter than everyone. He's pretentious.
And he's like a soulless, like academic observer. He's just like, I just need to be the smart one. I need to know what's going on. I have no personal emotions or
I-
connection to anything.
If I had a friend who knew I was about to witness death, like
Yeah.
literally dead bodies in front of me, and they smirked and didn't tell me, I would not be friends with that person unless I was a
Accurate.
21-year-old girl
Oh.
and they were a bunch of 27-year-old men. If she was 30, she would not put up with as much
Yeah,
shit, is
I agree.
my idea.
I
But
think
like,
you're totally right.
She would have gone to Sweden with her girlfriends. Boom.
Yeah.
oh yeah, and they would have stayed in Stockholm.
Yeah.
And
And probably had a lovely time.
I mean, she still had a fine time.
Yeah.
Sometimes, not all of it.
I don't agree. We'll get into it.
Let's talk about the cult.
Yeah, the Horga.
I could never. Like, there is no shade.
What?
Like, that's what I was thinking of this
Oh,
movie.
because it's
I was like,
so
There's no-
bright.
No shade.
literally,
Actual shade.
I would burn to death.
You would.
I was literally thinking.
Oh, you burn to death in an evening because it's bright until like 2 a.m.
It's just like so bright.
And the way Ari Aster filmed the movie really highlights that because it's a little overexposed and like washed out. So the whites are like blindingly bright.
And everyone's
It's like a
wearing
bleach
white.
commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Everyone's wearing white.
All of the Horga are wearing white. And our Americans, or I guess the Brits as well, are wearing darker colors.
Mhm.
And it is so perfect because like there's always a visual representation that they're separate from the commune.
Until
Until-
she's wearing white.
And she starts to wear like some lighter colors as it goes along. So there's lots of color symbolism in the movie. That's not where I live or notice, but I know there's lots of like the yellow of the church.
Oh, people have really dug into this
Yeah, and then the
movie.
blue, and it's like the colors of the Swedish flag.
Oh.
Yeah, so like basically they're in Sweden. They like trip on mushrooms in like a field before they get to the actual living area of the commune.
And they're there for like a day.
Yeah.
Almost.
They're there for like a day and a night, I think. But since it's like the midnight sun or whatever, like it's basically bright almost all the time there.
I did get excited when they said the midnight sun, and I did write it
Yes.
down.
Did you do some bug math to celebrate?
I didn't.
But yeah, so they trip. They
it's-
meet some
it's-
of the cult.
But
there.
yeah. So there's I cannot remember these characters' names. It's like
There is an Ingmar. I don't think he's the.
oh
No, it is
It
Ingmar.
is Ingmar.
Yeah, Pele's like cousin slash like kind of rival. They have like a rivalry going throughout the whole movie.
Really?
Because I think they're like the same age and they both brought back like groups of potential like sacrifices slash like, you know.
Well, Pele won in that case.
Well, that's the thing.
because
It's
Ingmar
like,
only got 2 people.
well, it's very clear. And the people that Ingmar brought weren't white.
oh.
Either of them. So I'm like, they weren't going to be kept as like breeding stock. It wasn't going to be like a Mark or Christian situation. I don't see any biracial
Wow.
Horga. They're a
I did
white
not think
supremacist
about
cult.
that.
I didn't think about that because I don't see color. I just didn't even notice.
All right, so we're shutting it down. No,
But no, that makes so much sense. Oh, I really didn't even think about it
It
that
does.
way. But you're so right.
so Pele did for
Pele's
sure win because
like the golden chosen boy.
exactly, and Ingmar is not, and it's like
He brought back like 3 potentials.
Yes.
Sorry, Cheaty.
right, but they did need people to sacrifice, but I think him bringing back more people and more white people was like the cult just had more options.
And he brought the main
Ingmar,
queen.
And Ingmar also fucked up because, like...
He brought a couple, too.
He brought a couple, but that's because he was a simp for Connie.
You're right.
He was crushing on Connie, and that's why he brought them.
He wanted Connie to be his cult wife.
Yes, and they were never going to go for it, but that was his hope that she would be, like, white enough that he could get, like, dispensation from the cult.
At least he has a happy ending.
Yep.
Well, you're so right about him. This movie's so good,
Right.
you guys.
Thank you.
And there's
I
so
didn't think
much
about
more that I noticed something like that, like, new each time watching it. Yeah, they meet Connie and what's his name?
And then there's just like some
friends.
various other like blonde white people.
Yeah,
that I guess
really-
are the other like cult members who've gone off into
think
the
so.
world.
Because
to
it's almost
go,
like Rumspringa, I feel like.
Yeah.
Where it's like they take a pilgrimage and go off and get degrees and like they're out recruiting for the cult kind of, but they're also just like living their lives and with the expectation that they come back at age
36.
That's working.
to work. They
18
work 36
yeah.
to 50.
18 to 36, and then it's 36 to 54 is working. Then
Working.
54 you're old, waiting until you're 72, and then you're
And
gone.
then you're at the stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're tripping, and so yeah, they take the mushrooms, and there's an awesome scene where they're just like sitting on a hill, feeling the effects of these shrooms, and Danny looks down and she sees like grass like growing out of her hand, and like the tree is breathing behind her, and
Mark.
yeah, everybody needs to lie down.
Yes.
Josh, can you lie down with me, please? Knight, like the worst person to trip with, but like people do get like that, and it was so funny. I was like, no, I don't want new people. When some like other guy, and he was just walking by and like said hello.
He's having a bad time.
Yeah.
And then Danny's having an okay time, and then starts having
because
a bad
Mark
time.
says, "You guys are my real family."
Yes,
Yeah.
and she gets
And
set
you like
off by the
see
word-
her like she's still kind of like spacey and drugged out, and then you see the word like family click, and she just like gets up and basically runs away.
Yeah.
First,
and-
she runs to a group that she thinks is laughing at her,
Yeah, even though
but they're probably not. It's all, yeah, I don't think they are.
They're
but-
well-meaning, but planning murder.
Right. And then she goes into like the little bathroom, lights the candle or whatever, and her sister is behind her in the
Yeah.
corner,
Yeah.
which is freaky. And then she just like runs screaming off into the woods, where I guess she slept for 6 hours and they
Yeah.
find her the next day. And I'm like, you couldn't have woken her up to like put her in a sleeping bag or like.
No,
None of
no
them
one
would.
is taking care of her.
And upon awakening, it is now her birthday.
Yeah. Which boyfriend has forgotten, but Pele remembers.
Yes, which is very important, as
Notable.
it turns out. Yeah, and then later on, someone asked them how long they've been together, and Christian says 3.5 years, and she said 4 years. And he's like, really? And she said, yeah, 4 years and 2 weeks.
Eek.
So he also just forgot their anniversary, and then 2 weeks later forgot her birthday,
Yep.
which I realized this time. I was like, oh my God, 4 years and 2 weeks. Oh God.
Ugh, he sucks.
Yeah.
No, I actually do want to talk about drug usage because
Yeah.
it's such a part. Like this movie.
Yeah, let's talk about that because it is a huge part of this movie.
It's a huge part of
There's
this movie.
tons of like mushrooms and other like drugs. in
Well,
this
she
movie.
starts out on Ativan, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
you're
what
right.
she's taking, and she's taking like benzos to chill out, right? She's like Xanning herself out in the beginning.
Big Pharma.
Yeah, she's big pharmaing in the beginning. And then they do the mushrooms when they're in, to me, what feels like, remember in like Barnes and Noble, maybe this is like a Texas thing, but like when you enter Barnes and Noble and there's the like weird little like space that's like the two doors, it's almost like the decompression chamber
Yes.
of like the AC. Like it helps
Right.
for
Well, I
AC.
was gonna say it probably is a
Right.
Texas thing because it's for air conditioning.
Yeah, it's for air conditioning. So you have like
The antechamber.
yeah, the antechamber. You like go through these two big heavy doors, and then there's like a small room with like a few books just set out that they don't care if anyone steals it.
Yes.
And then there's the next level of doors when you like enter
And then
the
you're
building.
actually in the bookstore.
And then you're
through
actually
that
in
second
Barnes and
set of
Noble. Like
doors.
to me,
Yeah.
that's what I think of for this like scene where they're
I
on
totally
mushrooms.
agree. People
is-
overuse the phrase liminal space, but that's what it is because it's just a passageway from the real world or outer world to the Horga.
It
like,
literally
compound.
is. I mean, and it is such an anthropology term. Is that liminal moving between, and then they go through the doorway, which is the like woods.
Also, let me just say now, I guess, like the production design, like
Oh, it's
all of the
amazing.
sets, all of the costumes, all of the scenery, like all of the shots, it's just immaculate.
It
is the most like perfect production design of
meticulous.
like any movie.
Yeah, I agree.
And I was like, I could live on that set if there was shade, which
Yeah, I
there
was
is
sorry,
not.
I could never.
Because I am also melaninally challenged.
I love the sun.
I also love the sun, but the sun doesn't love me the same amount.
Right.
It's like an unequal relationship,
Oh.
like with Christian and Danny.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you're Danny.
You say "I love you" to the sun, and it says you have a new mole. You should get it
Yes.
checked out in 10 years.
Said that to me just the other day.
No, but I like how you referred to the walking through the woods as purgatory before, I think.
Yeah.
Because that part really hit me, and that's when, Brett, I was telling you about it at one point. I got stuck on the music part because there was a scale that kept going over and over, and
Yes.
it's kind of propelling you forward. It's,
Whatever,
I looked it up, so that
Okay.
was me nerding out a little bit. Haven't had music theory in over 10 years, but I was like, okay, we're starting with E. We're going back to E. So we've got a scale. I know this is C major because there's no sharps or flats. And we're starting on the third. And then I didn't want to Google it because I was like, I know it's a mode. And I'm going to ask my BFF.
Was it Phrygian?
It was!
Was
It
it,
was
really?
Phrygian,
Oh my god, I pulled it out of my asshole.
Good job.
I don't know what any of this means, but I'm happy for you guys.
And that's pretty much where I'll leave it at. I was
right.
kind of like lightly looking up C Phrygian, like in case that was like meaningful for something.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, I think the composer just did a good job of like propelling us forward and like
I
a
definitely
safe.
had that sense from that because it's like when they are playing the flutes at the beginning as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
And it
exactly.
does seem like a beckoning almost.
And like you can tell it's major, so you're like, it's
Yeah.
friendly, but you're like, but it's off.
But it's weird because it's starting on the third.
Right. So it's almost minory, but it's not. So you're
Now,
like,
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know music theory, but I noticed that there's a lot of discordance, right? Especially in the vocalizing, because there'll be like the music that you said's like just a little off, right? Like I can hear it
Yeah.
even though I don't know what
Yeah.
any of what you said.
Well,
is correct.
that's-
Exactly.
it's all just why it sounds like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
you can hear how it sounds.
It sounds a little off, and then when they do vocalizing over it, there's always sort of a discordance to it, clashing on purpose.
but you have the safety of the foundation, so you're like, things are okay, right? But you're like,
But that's
it's
just enough
slightly
dissonance that you're
off.
like, I don't feel settled. There's something wrong. And that something is white supremacy. But yeah, so then they arrive at the commune proper. Are they're
Commune
not
proper.
they're not drugged that day, I think.
I
maybe
kind of
they
thought
are.
they were
They're-
always lightly
I mean, they-
drugged. At
I
least
do
a
think
little
there's
bit.
always like a little bit of I called it in my notes LST.
I'm in no position to judge after all my terrible jokes, so I will say good job.
More so at the end, they use
Yeah.
the words. I have a quote here. It breaks down your defenses and opens you for the influence.
A Christian at one point inhales like smoke Viagra before
Yeah.
the scene.
The scene.
Yeah. And we see Danny asking Chidi for sleeping pills like several times.
Yeah, it seems like both of them have to use sleeping pills to sleep. Because it's light all
Yeah.
the time, and there's
Right.
babies screaming in your communal hut.
That's another good point. It's like part of that communal thing is that babies are basically raised by everyone.
Yeah.
So whenever Pele talks about like, this is my sister, this is my whatever.
My
I'm like,
parents died in a fire.
right. Because he says that to like try to like bond with Danny, but it's like, you guys don't even do parents like that. That's not how the cult is set up. Like they put scissors, a pair of scissors like under the baby's like pillow or whatever in the crib. I think to symbolize like severing the connection like with its own mother, to like open it up to like, you're part of the cult and everyone's raising you.
Well, like they said, they sent the mom off on pilgrimage. She's not there. So that purposefully the baby's raised by other people and she has more detachment.
Yeah. So it's that,
That
like
makes a lot of
wild.
sense.
so it's that
yeah.
idea of like everything is so communal and they share everything, but it's almost like maybe quantity over quality in
Yeah.
terms of these relationships. Like everyone's chummy, but no one is like super
Really?
deeply connected.
I feel like they're so connected. That's just how I read it. Is they
Maybe.
like they breathe together. Because
Yeah.
again, it's like Danny's so isolated. She's so separate, both like physically and emotionally from everyone. And the cult, as you said, it seems like out of the get-go, they're like, this is someone who could join us.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yeah. They caught her from the beginning. Like,
they
she
invite
is,
her in. As you said, there's
Yeah.
probably racial things I didn't realize about that.
Good job.
They're real blonde and white. And they welcome her in, and they're like, when she starts breaking down, they go with her.
Yes.
They go in the bathroom with her when she starts screaming. They scream with her when snot starts running down her face. They have the same. It's like, to me, that's like a powerful connection. So I don't know if I see that disconnection that they like, that it's so surface level. But I could be wrong if they're all just like nomadic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're laying on the importance of community, love, and we can all, like, we don't need the individual. And so it's
Yes.
like, if you can separate from your parents aren't there saying you're an individual.
Right.
You're not individually seeking
Yeah.
the two people or whatever.
I think there's definitely something, like, I'm thinking about what you were saying about them being only sort of connected through community and not so much individually, because, like, if they do separate them from their parents, you want it to be that if someone does have to be, like, another spoiler alert, when you turn 72, you jump off of a cliff onto a rock. If you do it
And you better do it face first, bitch.
I was saying, if you do
Hello.
it well, that's the end of you. If you don't do it well, then the community grieves.
Yes.
Right? Like, that's a powerful scene. That's a moment where I think Danny starts maybe not realizing it yet, but seeing something that she's extremely envious of, where they're all weeping together.
Yeah.
Everybody's screaming and crying. They're
Yes.
all letting loose. They're all, like, acting in ways that, like, our society deems as deranged, right? And then they smash his head like a watermelon with a giant mallet.
See, for me, I'm like, I read all that as like so performative because it's like,
Really?
yes, because it's like, no matter how much you're up in Danny's face and screaming and heaving with her, you didn't just see your boyfriend like fucking some other girl. And like, I'm not even saying it's necessarily malicious. It's just like, if they're basically required to do that by their culture and like, you're like obligated to like pretend like you're feeling what someone else is feeling. Like, I think it's what Danny needs, but I don't see it as any more almost like real than like at the beginning when Christian is just like sitting with Danny and like kind of holding her as she weeps. Like, would it have been better if Christian was like making the sounds that she was and like rocking with her? Would it have been more emotionally significant? I mean,
I think
and I'm sure it's different
so.
for different people.
I
But I just
mean-
find it so performative, and I'm like, I think if I were that person and I was crying and someone's next to me like, me too, like, I'm also sad for you, I'd be like,
noted.
get the fuck away.
We'll not do
Well,
that to you.
I think it can be performative if you're not. It can be performative if you're just not gonna receive it, because it's like,
Oh, I see.
like I'm in my feelings right now. We can cut this or not, but I'm like, if someone is experiencing a trauma similar to what I've experienced, I'm like, ooh, I feel it. I'm like,
Yeah.
here's what I was feeling. Here's what
Yes.
helped me. And like,
Well, I understand
a big
that.
part of what I do, like, is it's really another friend of mine. Like, one time she got her car towed and she just like started crying in the car, and I'm listening to her, and all of a sudden I'm crying, and we're both just crying together, and then we're both laughing together, and then we're like, I'm dumb. But there's something really nice when you can like get on that level
Yeah.
together. And so I can see
Definitely.
when it's performative if you're forcing it out of someone. But if you see like, oh, this girl is hanging on the edge here.
Yeah.
She's about to combust, and you're like, you gotta let it out.
Right, but I'm just like, okay, like, wow, if only if only her boyfriend hadn't been manipulated by this cult that you're all in, and now you're like, oh, we feel what you're feeling. It's like, you're part of it. Like, you made that happen. And then what really indicated this to me is the ending, because the sacrificing, the people inside are like screaming, the living ones, as the temple burns down. And Danny is like, again, like trying to separate, even at the very end, after all of her character arcs, she's walking away from the Horga in her flower slug look. And people are like, and you see people like crossing her, like walking the other direction, opposite from her, to go and like heave and convulse about like for their, fellow cult members who are being sacrificed, who were lied to, because he was like, take from the yew tree and feel no pain. take from the yew tree and feel no fear. But when they catch on fire, there is pain, and they're screaming, and it's like you're killing these people, and then you're like convulsing and like rending your clothes, and I'm like, I don't buy it.
I think it's both. Like, I am not going to read it as cynically as you are. Like, it just doesn't read that way to me. But this is art, right? Like, we can interpret art differently. I definitely read it as they are both earnest and, yeah, they're manipulative and lying. They are drugging these people to make them pliant.
Yes.
Right? They are manipulating him and drugging him so he will deposit his seed in, like, a 15-year-old girl.
Yes.
Right? Like, this is part of the movie. Like, they are not good, right? Like,
Right.
do not misread anybody.
Yeah.
My, like, kind of like, I don't know, rose-tinted glasses about this story for Danny's arc.
Sure.
As me, like, being like, yeah, this cult's great. Because, like, no, they're literally killing people. They're killing their own people. But I also think they are believers. Like, I think this
Yeah.
is religiously, like, for them. Maybe there are some that doubt. But, like,
I was going to bring that up as, like, I do think
It's
you're right in the
possible.
sense that, like, there are people just like in real life, a whole spectrum of people who go from, like, cynically using the religion or just not believing, but it's easier to go on to get along, to, like, the most fervent true believers. And so probably some people with their, like, empathy, whatever, like, sorry, some people are really feeling what Danny is feeling. But, like, I don't know. I just don't think they're all like always going to be on the same page. Everyone's going to be feeling.
I think
what they're trying to.
performing that vulnerability though is also true. Like, I think, and some of this might be gendered. Like,
Yeah.
Sam and I grew up as girls who were encouraged to feel and be empathetic and connect with people. Female relationships, like, yes, there's some cattiness, there's mean girl stuff, but like, we are allowed in ways that, like, people who are raised as men are not allowed to be, like, vulnerable outside of ourselves. Like, we do get encouraged to do that. We're allowed to talk about our feelings. And so I do think that there's something very meaningful where the women in this culture, like, yeah, it's super, like, patriarchal. Like, the women have to go cook in the kitchen. They have to put their pubes. In the pie. Little
Sometimes
pie.
you just gotta put your pubes in the pie.
It's part of the recipe.
There are many
It is part of
reasons.
it's on the tapestry. So.
It's on the
is.
tapestry. It's in the, like, IKEA directions on how to make the pube pie. But I do think that there's something very real about, like, I do think our society would be better if we weren't like, ew, that person's having feelings in front of me. Like,
Totally.
people should be allowed to express themselves.
Yeah, I agree.
But I did read it, like, at least maybe my positive view on it is that at the end she's separating herself, but then she smiles at the end, and, like, I imagine that she stays with the
I also think she stays.
like, I think she stays. Like, she has nothing else. These people are hugging her. They remember her birthday. She's the May Queen. She's the center of attention. She's, like, you know, the chosen one. They love her. Like, it's not perfect, but I think for her in that moment where she's, like, drugged out of her gourd,
Oh yeah.
like,
But that's why I find it so sinister. It's like they were exactly what she needed. So I see it as her like trading one abusive relationship for another. And this one, in some ways, she has even less autonomy because it's like, okay, you've reached the worker age. Now you go live in the worker house. And then, oh, you're 72. Like, now you're the lady who looked like a 72-year-old you when you guys were making eye contact.
can I say something really spicy?
Yes.
So I've done something like this. Like, I've done a thing that is sinister. It's a brainwashing vehicle for a religious cult, and it's called Birthright. I've done it. When you go on that trip, some of you may not be familiar with this, and this may rustle some feathers, but, like, this is what it is you take people from the outside because you want to...
And these are for Jewish
This
like,
is-
youth, right?
Right. So any person who can prove that they are Jewish, usually this is through, like, mother's blood, although they've gotten less picky over time as they've had to.
Right.
Can return to Israel and do something called an aliyah, where you are returning to the homeland that is our birthright. Okay, this is, like, real. This is what I was raised with, right? Any Jew who is under 26 years old, I think it's 26 or younger, which seems similar. Ari Aster's Jewish, by the way.
You don't say.
Seems similar. 26 and younger can go on a free, all expenses trip to Israel, where it's like young, generally college students. I went with my college group, my college Hillel, all 5 of us. We went on this trip, and they pair you off with the most beautiful IDF soldiers that you've ever seen in your life. And you spend all day going to amazing sites. Then you spend all night drinking and doing drugs and partying, going to literal like clubs with the IDF soldiers. It's all planned. And then you don't sleep. And then the next day you're up at, you have to go see sunrise, dawn at Mount Sinai or whatever. Like you're doing all this crazy shit, and you're like not eating enough. You're like not sleeping. You're doing all these like drugs, you're drinking, you're like partying with all these beautiful people. And the goal of it is that you fall in love either with the country or even better, one of the soldiers.
Right.
And the soldiers are like your age too. They're also like 21, whatever. They're like IDF, they're 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Outside of high school. And they want you to aliyah and become a citizen of Israel, where you will serve in the IDF, you learn Hebrew, and you live in a settlement or whatever. But like that's what this is very, like I've done it. Like you become caught up in it. Like you can't tell. Like,
of course.
I even knew at the time, I didn't go into it knowing, but there was a kid on my trip who was like, this is weird. And he was like noticing stuff. And he started telling me about it, and then I like opened my eyes to it. And even knowing that it was like a brainwashing trip, like purely propaganda, I still got caught up in it.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're like, this is my community. No one understands me except this community. We're all family. It's like they just like engineer it to be like super powerful.
Disclaimer from future me. Everything I'm saying about my experience on my birthright trip was just my own personal experience, and I'm sure that many people have very different experiences that are extremely sober and professional and not at all like what I had. Please do not sue me or come after me. Mossad. Thank you.
So anyway.
Yeah, I agree, and hearing you say that makes me more surprised that you see it as almost like a happy ending
for her. But
Yeah.
I think, like anytime.
But I agree with you that it is a happy ending for her, because that's what she specifically needs. It's like the perfect, like, I don't know what you'd call it.
Why do people join cults?
Right.
Why were the cults such a huge boom in like the 70s? When people are just feeling really isolated and like nihilistic.
Yep.
And there's a community that's like, you don't need stuff. You just need like love and free love and radical acceptance.
Right.
Like I see the appeal.
I also see the appeal, because I've been like, I just want to live on a farm somewhere with my friends, and like we'll just.
Oh my gosh, amazing! Like we
live
all want our
communally.
we all want our commune.
Yes.
Like there's something that's like a siren song for me sometimes. Like I'm not gonna do it, but I do know which ones I would pick. Because
like I do have my short list.
Okay, for me, it's Yogaville in Virginia. I've been there because I went. A little dox myself. I went to this. Are you gonna look it up? It's very pretty. It's not super far from Lynchburg, Virginia.
Okay.
I went to college in the middle of Appalachia, and we went to Yogaville, and its spiritual leader is dead now. His name was the Swami Satchit Ananda.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I mean Yogaville isn't like not famous. There he is.
Yeah.
There's the Swami, and I mean they seem really nice, honestly. Like. I haven't seen anything sinister there. I didn't stay there.
It is beautiful.
But yeah, no, it's like it has this beautiful like lotus on the water, and it has on the first floor it has a shrine for every known religion, and then a shrine for religions unknown. And then on the floor,
I really like that.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then on the floor above that, it just has like a quiet, no one's allowed to talk, like meditation room. It was really nice.
Sounds great.
So like I get the appeal of cults, even
I also
though
do.
I can fully be aware that they use isolation, manipulative, like drug tactics to keep people pliant. It breaks you down so you can build yourself up. Like it can be happy for Danny, but Danny's so fucked up that it can still be sinister.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Is like she is at like below rock bottom. Like she is like there's nowhere to go but up for her. Like family's dead, boyfriend fucking sucks. Like no friends except the one girl she talks to on the phone that one time.
I think it's very meaningful that we
Yeah.
do not see her as like someone who's very much in her life.
Yes.
She's just some college friend that she's gonna not
Right, she
see
texts
again.
her like, happy early birthday, and like, that's it. We see her like on the phone with this girl, and then she gets a birthday text from her.
It's probably like one of her high school friends that
Yeah.
she's kind of keeping in touch with.
I bet that's exactly what it is.
Because hopefully if she had friends at college, they say, stop hanging out with these losers.
Right, and it's not like you have to look that closely to see they're losers.
Oh, God.
Yeah, well, I think that's an interesting point.
We need to hear a word from our sponsor. Okay, so this podcast is brought to you by transvestigating all the cis men in your life. Do you know a short king? How about a guy who just needs to feel a little bit insecure? Ask your boss, where do you get your tea? Tell dudes that they pass.
Oh,
Ask them their pronouns. Look, get out your phrenology scalpel.
No.
Start asking people, what's in your pants? Are you a pervert?
You ask somebody else
Yeah.
if they're the pervert.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's in your pants?
are you one of those
the
perverts? I need to
pervert?
see your
Go-
dick to know if you're a pervert
Go
or
to
not.
a little girl's soccer
No.
game and start saying you need to inspect the of the
No.
children to save them from pedophiles.
Editor Brett here with a legal disclaimer. The views expressed during this ad are those of our sponsor and do not necessarily represent views held by members of the Queer and Loathing podcast. I would strongly caution our listeners against attending any children's soccer games. They're boring as fuck. See you in Sweden.
Thank you, sponsor.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed spending your break asking dudes if they're on T, meaning testosterone.
Yeah, ask them where they get their binder. Yeah, you could say, like, I know you're a guy, and then say, but I can tell, and then give them a wink. They'll love that.
Oh my god, the fucking exploding heads. To take it back to Midsommar, but like the exploding heads you would cause by asking some of these dudes that would be possibly as graphic as the exploding head in this film.
So, yeah, let's talk about Midsommar.
Skål!
Okay, I have so many themes written down. I can just kind of go through them.
Do you have put your disgusting dick away as a theme?
No.
Oh.
But he's pissing on the ancestral tree.
Yes, and that's what the guy says. He runs over and he says, put your disgusting dick away in Swedish.
God, that character's so...
You're pissing on our ancestors.
Yeah. I mean, but that's what I think is... Again, I think that's an important scene because I do think that they, like, literally believe it. Like, I think they
Well,
believe...
that guy is like the most true believer guy because he's the one who's like watching the test strip, like beaming and just like he's like the most true believer of them all, I
Yeah,
think.
that's... The ancestors are in the rotten tree
Yeah.
that Bandersnatch guy's just pissing on with his disgusting dick. But there's definitely, like, openly sinister things. Like, I mean, no one does a blood eagle when they're good guys, you know?
Yeah,
I'm
you
just
think
gonna
that would
make
be
that
an "Are we
broad-
the baddies" moment?
We have a blood eagle in our, like, chicken barn. Are we the baddies?
No.
We have, like, a flayed face of a guy that one of our dudes is wearing as a mask when he...
And then just a foot sticking out of a
Yep.
flower bed.
Normal.
That's like
Well,
the weirdest part.
And from the beginning, they're like, and this is the bear.
Yeah, the bear in a cage.
Yeah.
And they just walked past it like, anyway, on your left, you'll see.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that over there. Look at this nice thing over here.
And I do have a question about that. I did
Yeah.
have a portion where I was like, Sam's question, but I'm going to insert this one here. Do we think they caught the bear or bought the bear?
Ooh.
I don't know enough
That's a good question,
about
actually.
you.
geography and zoology to know what bears are...
If you have any thoughts on it, please email us at
Do you
Queer and
know
Loathing Pod.
what types of
At Gmail.
bears Sweden has? Write in.
Yeah.
Queer
where
and
do you
Loathing
find them?
Pod
And where do
at-
you buy them? And,
And
how
if
much do they
they're
go
there,
for?
do we think the cult can catch a bear?
Probably.
That's a good question, though, because I also see them as like phony enough that like they would just
Buy
like
a bear.
buy a bear.
I mean, I didn't see any dogs.
Right.
You need dogs to catch a bear.
I think you do, actually.
As I said, I spent a lot of time in Appalachia.
Yeah.
You literally do.
No, that's a good point.
If you're
yeah.
bear hunting, you need dogs to like chase them. It
Yeah,
works
there are no
better
dogs
on
or
black
there's no
bears.
pets at all.
No, they don't have any animals.
Yeah, they don't have any animals, do they?
Oh, they have animals that they feed people, but
Yeah.
they don't have like pets.
But do they even really have livestock? I don't remember seeing.
Well, they have
any
like the
pens
chickens, and
they use
then
chickens.
they're eating some kind of. It looks like a goat skull or something. But
Yeah,
she's so
yeah.
LSD'd out.
You're
that
right.
it's-
The May Queen on the table, and it's like
Yeah.
some hunk of meat
Well,
or something.
what
and
did
I'm like,
Mark
I
say
don't
something
like
like the
that.
food just gets worse or
Yeah.
something? Like,
Oh yeah, I think that was one I didn't write down, but it was so
the
funny.
food looks so gross.
Yeah.
I will say
He's
again.
like, it's like they're trying to make it bad.
yeah.
Mark has a lot. I wrote down a couple of slides.
He's saying things that like if you're there and you think you're on like an orgy party and you're being fed like the best thing you could be fed is a pot pie that may or may not have a child's pube in it.
Yep.
Like it's dark and like all the food is covered in flies.
Yeah.
It's so gross. I would be
It is
so
nasty.
miserable. That would be my hell.
I love when
Yeah,
Mark,
it really would
I love when Mark first walks in to the compound and he says, "I didn't realize we were stopping at Waco on the way to Pele's village."
Well, I mean,
And you know what?
you're in a cult movie, buddy.
He kind of hit the bullseye on that one. And then the funniest one was there's like this lovely camera angle, like it's like showing the table, they're like setting the table, it pans up to the temple, and it's this beautiful shot. And then over it, Mark says, "Somebody should tell those girls they're walking stupid." And the camera immediately drops down and shows the girls like walking backwards and picking flowers. And it's so funny. It's like the movie itself is like commenting on.
Well, that's why it's one of the reasons
Mark's
like
line.
he doesn't get chosen is he never falls for it.
Yes,
like
you're right.
he's never like even pretending to
But
buy
he's
it.
he doesn't buy it, nor is he like swept up in it or finds it all that interesting.
No,
Mark
none
is
of
just
them.
like
None
yeah.
of them buy it, right?
That's true.
But Danny's like too polite to
Yeah.
say until she is in it. Like when
Yes.
she becomes May Queen, I think is like she's more passively like
Yeah.
open to it. I
And
think.
Chidi doesn't buy it, but he has a
No.
vested interest in
Yeah.
His
learning about it and
thesis.
playing nice so he can write his thesis,
Yeah,
which
he just
writes
wants his
about the Orgo.
thesis. But no, it's like the food is so gross, and like they're trying to make her like eat a just fish that's like
Oh, they like try to make her like eat a herring in like one
Yeah.
gulp.
it's just like a raw herring,
and they like shove it in her mouth.
and they're like yeah, and then they laugh and they're like good try.
And I actually thought that moment was interesting, and I'm not sure what to make of it because Danny is so savvy to everything about the cult, everything about Sweden. Like when they're being greeted at the beginning, she's the only one to answer in Swedish. She's already done some preliminary work.
Oh yeah.
She like is the first of the group to realize like without knowing that like the guy is or the woman is gonna like jump off the cliff. She just like she's with it all the
paying
time and like
attention, yeah.
she wins the May Queen dance. And the only time we really see her like totally
The
fit
fish?
is the fish, where she can't even kind of do it. Everything else she's like a natural.
Yeah, she just can't eat that herring.
Cannot eat that herring.
Impossible mission for her.
Yes.
And I've never.
I don't know if it means anything. I just thought that was interesting because it's the one time we see her like fail at being a cult member.
But I think it's supposed to be like this is forced.
And probably almost no one can do it.
Yeah.
Is what I would guess. It's
Well,
like
they
maybe
were
one
like-
in like 100 people could.
They said
suck it
good
down, but
try,
yeah.
they weren't like, oh, you failed the test.
That's true.
Right? I think
Yeah, it was just kinda
I think
funny
most
that-
people fail it. They just
Yes.
wanted to see if she would. And they're genuinely, I read it as they're genuinely excited to welcome her.
Yes.
But also what you're saying, this is all like,
Right.
I don't think it was orchestrated that she'd be May Queen. I think they saw it as like the sign.
I could see that.
I
I kind of go back and forth on that, but this most recent time I kind of felt the same that like she really did win the May Queen because they say it's like an endurance
Yeah.
competition, and it kind of makes sense that she would win because she's finally in that headspace of like she's finally leaving her rock bottom on the way up, and she's like, I am gonna live, like I'm gonna push through this hard time, and like there's people here who care about me, and I'm gonna come out the other side. So it makes sense that she would like be putting all her energy, like that she would have that kind of endurance.
masking being functional
Yeah,
is something. But yeah, no, I've never like touched a drug in my life.
nor have I.
I also have not.
That
Thank you.
LSD is the most realistic depiction. As you said, like, there are so many movies where they're like, I don't know, I think of like Euro Trip, where they're like, oh, we drink the wormwood and there's a green fairy floating around, or like,
Right.
I don't know, it's like a lot of movies where it's like, oh, you do LSD and it's just pink elephants on parade. You're
Right.
just seeing crazy shit.
Yes,
it's
and
like,
it's like that's not what it's like.
No, it's like you feel a little sick. You being not me, because I would never.
No.
But it's like you feel a
One.
little sick.
We're back to one.
And you see.
One feels a little sick.
One would feel
Who was you?
like they have a tummy ache, and they would make the literal faces that Danny and her boyfriend are making. They both look so ill. It's amazing.
It is truly amazing. When Christian is like at dinner, the May Queen dinner,
He looks so sick. Oh,
he
it feels
looks
so bad for him.
sick. It's like the most pathetic I've ever seen anyone look. And then he turns to the guy with like the biggest eyes. He's got like Snapchat filter eyes.
And he just claps.
And that guy claps in his face, and Christian's like about to cry. Yeah, it is so accurate to just like the feelings of being on sobriety.
Yeah.
This episode is also brought to you by sobriety.
If you do drugs, you're gonna end up afoot in a garden. So
might.
think before
Or a
you
blood eagle.
drink. Or a blood eagle. Think before you drink.
Think before you drink, or else your lungs may be hanging out of your back.
Yeah. Some other themes I have here is identity versus community, because the boyfriend has no identity, and reflections are used a lot.
Yes.
In the movie.
Lots of mirror shots.
Lots
You're
of
right.
mirrors. Obviously, connection is a big theme. Sunshine without being able to hide things in the shadows. One that I definitely want to talk about is foreshadowing done through like illustrations and just dialogue.
Yeah.
Like people literally are telling you throughout the movie what is going to happen to these people, and then they are also showing it to you
That's true.
through illustrations or like tiles.
Well, the very like what is it? The first shot of the movie maybe is that big mural that just like spells out literally the plot
The entire
Yeah.
plot.
with the characters depicted looking like themselves. And like, yeah, without the context of knowing who the characters are, like you don't necessarily know enough to like actually call everything just from that mural, but it's all in there.
And the murals,
the entire story.
The mural's so much to look at that you're not
Yeah.
like picking it apart. You're just like, ooh.
And the aesthetics are so cool that you're just like, wow, this is so interesting looking. And
This is
it's
so pretty.
And if you pick up on something, you're like, oh, and it's the Four Seasons.
But they also say that. He says like, yeah, because he's talking about when you're born, it's like spring, and then it's summer when you're in your like 20s and
Yep.
30s, and then it's fall when you're of working age, and then winter's until you're 72, and then Danny's like, haha, what happens when you're 72?
And
he
Pele
just
makes
goes,
the gesture, like hand
across
across
the
your
neck.
neck.
and they laugh awkwardly.
And we think, yeah, and you would think he's joking because it almost seems like he is, but he's not. He's straight up telling,
like that's what's
almost like
gonna
testing
happen.
the waters, I guess, by telling her the truth, but in a way that it's like, I'm kidding, maybe.
So, if you turn 72 the day after the what's it's called, do you get to wait a year?
Oh.
Or do you like round down?
I'm assuming that they don't actually have birthdays. I'm assuming that they do the thing where everyone who's born during a certain year has that birthday.
I could see that.
That's not that unusual.
I think they want it to be everything to be as communal as possible. So I don't think they would be like
I would assume summer solstice every year.
the people who are 72.
Yeah, that's birthday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would be my assumption.
Okay.
Because this does not seem like a society where, ironically, even though he does celebrate her birthday, I do think that might be a bit performative, right? He's being like he's trying to get on her good side without being too smarmy.
Well, that's the thing, and it's almost like, but he's so good at it because he's extra smarmy, because he's also like being a bro to Christian, because he's the one who tells Christian that it's her birthday.
Yeah.
And he's like, and then Christian's like, oh, did Danny say something? And Pele's like, no, which she didn't. But it's like, Pele's playing both of them, like he's being the good friend, like to both of them.
Well, he's trying to
While
separate
he's trying
them
to, like,
because
yeah.
when you bring in a couple, you have to split the couple
Yes.
in order to get the seed. You need the seed. They got a
I got
need
a
for
need.
seed.
Need for
You
Ew.
beat me to
Suck it, bitch.
Oh, damn it. Next time. I'll suck the seed next. No.
Oh. You look beautiful.
Thank you. If you heard rustling, it's because I was putting on my very real flower crown that is both mine and made of real flowers.
It's gorgeous.
And you can't prove that it's not.
That's right.
You fucking listeners.
Another. Sorry.
Another
Are
theme.
we done? Another theme. I guess the last one I really wanted to talk about is the cycle, because I feel like the movie.
Yeah.
The movie is like a cycle, right?
Yes.
Like there's the cycle of rebirth, the cycle of the seasons. Like I think that one's quite.
Yeah, and like the old lady who dies in the test chupa, the baby
Yes.
that is not like the just born or is not yet born, like is going to have her same name.
Yes, it's like the birth and rebirth and the seasons. Like it's just it's nice.
Yeah,
I
and
love a
it's-
movie with the thinks.
Me too. Yeah, I think there's, and then like we do this every 90 years, or like, because I think so. I have some questions too, and I don't know if it matters, but just
I'm
like,
not done.
But I'm like, so theoretically, they celebrate Midsummer every year, but this is the special 90-year
Yes.
blowout.
Every year, I'm assuming they do an Autostupa.
Yes, right. I would assume that because at some point she even says like, "Have you seen that before?" And they're like, "Well, we do it every time someone turns 72." So yeah, like I've
Yeah.
seen it a lot.
And there aren't a ton of them, but
No, but enough that like you're not going to go more than a year or two
yeah.
without seeing one. But like, where do they live? Do they live is that like a ceremonial grounds, or do they actually live there? Or are they just like living in the city and like some of them are dentists?
You
Like,
think they just like LARP? I think it's
I truly
entirely
don't know.
possible.
Yeah,
I think it's entirely possible.
and that's what I like. I like that I don't know. To be clear, like I'm not.
And that leads to my
Yeah.
question, which is, does the government know that people are dying?
No.
And then I'm like, do they
No,
know
no,
that
no.
people are born? Like,
No,
Right.
are they completely off grid?
I think they're completely off.
I would
That's
imagine.
that's my assumption. I don't
It
think
makes more sense if they are, because I think they could get away with.
they might have a dentist or a doctor who maybe commutes.
I would imagine there are enough people in the cult who have like birth certificates and like whatever that
Pele
like,
must have one.
yeah, where they can travel
Maybe.
and like it seems
Oh, I
like
guess
Well,
he
honey,
must
yeah.
if he's
yeah.
having to go through immigration. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but I like that I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's
I'm like, are these international travelers? Nobody's going to be like, where did they go?
Right, I'm like, because normally missing Americans abroad is like not something that's easily swept under the rug.
no.
Seems like you'd be calling a lot of attention to be like 3 Americans and 2 Brits, and then another American, I guess, Danny, but she's alive, so we can produce her.
But it's different
Just
now
like,
than
you come
90
back?
years ago.
Right.
And just assuming none of those people
there's an
told
embassy.
their
Yeah.
loved ones where they were going.
Right.
But they don't know where they're going.
Yes. Like physically, they don't know
They
where
don't
the
know.
Horga compound is.
Yeah.
But people know they're in Sweden.
I mean, for all they know, I mean, I don't know. Because I could definitely see like the cult being like, oh, we went hiking and they
Whoops.
left. They said they were leaving and
Right, that's
we're
what I
going
would
into the
guess is-
city.
yeah.
They were going to go to Stockholm to go party.
They got picked up by a hitchhiker, or they
Right.
hitchhiked, so they got
Yes.
picked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm wondering, like,
Could you imagine living like that? Every fucking time you want to eat, you have to haul out tables into the middle of a field.
and set it up like a big rune.
Just like a big rune with fly-covered
Well-
nasty food. Ugh.
To quote my redacted, if we ever are in a Swedish death cult situation, I'm just gonna go. I'm
You're
not.
just out of there?
I'm just done. I'm either leaving or
A test
I'm
tube
72.
yourself. Yeah, or I'm 72.
or I'm
bitch.
72.
Yeah. Yeah, but I like that there are all those ambiguities and questions. And also, I would say, even though this film is very logical and it does hold up to scrutiny, it's also very much supposed to be like a fairy tale
Yes.
type of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like Danny's fairy tale.
Yeah.
And it very much works on fairy tale logic, even though I think it also has grounded like real world.
It's
Logic.
very much, that's why I was saying, like, it gives me this vibe of like, this is her Cinderella story.
It is.
She becomes the princess,
Yeah.
the lost princess who becomes the queen of the land, the May Queen. And it's just like, so in storytelling, right? Like, not to talk about my
Well, we're going broad.
not to do like my day job, right? But like I have to explain to a lot of people how stories work, right? What makes a compelling story? And there's 2 tried and true types of stories. You have the Cinderella story, which is like the most common, where you have someone who is down at the bottom, which Danny could not be more of that at the beginning of this movie, who has a slow arc to the top, right? That's your Cinderella story. It like hits something in our lizard brains that we just enjoy that, right? Now, a 3-act movie, it may have them go to the top and then go to the bottom and then go back to the top, like a Princess Diaries type of thing,
Right.
right? But even movies outside of that fantasy sort of like mythological fairy tale genre can have this exact sort of trajectory because it is just so tried and true.
Yes.
Another really common one is you start at the top and then you have your downfall. That's your like uncut gems, your tar. And I would say this movie has both. It has the boyfriend's trajectory where he goes from being in the in group and feeling confident to feeling like sick and scared and like
Sewn
at his
into a
low,
bear.
And
sewn into a
used.
bear and set on fire.
Yeah.
Again, he ends in a pretty bad place. So you have these two stories.
Yeah, Danny and Christian are like,
She's having her Cinderella sort of fairy tale story. And when she is hitting her highest notes, he is mirroring that, going under and having
Yeah.
a really bad time. But like at the beginning, he's the one laughing at bars. He's the one who's confident. Like he's a shithead, but he's like, doesn't have a care in the world. He's,
Right.
oh, I have this girlfriend. She's so hot and kind. My life sucks, right? Like,
Yes.
whatever. Fuck him, right?
right, and like, I don't know what I want to write my thesis on.
Yeah, his like problems are
Yeah.
nothing, right? So, like, I think that fairy tale element of it is purposeful.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it's a tried and true story, but the way that he's doing it, it's so sinister because her rise to the top, literally, like, her moment is she's like the queen reigning over her new domain. There is a house on fire with corpses that have been just totally butchered.
And two living people.
Three.
Three, yeah.
3 living people in this house, and the music is just this like, it's almost like heresy, right? Like the music is so like joyous and triumphant
Yes.
while this horrific thing is happening. And I think it's just very, very clever.
I do too.
It's
Oh,
very similar to Wicker Man. Not to
yes,
spoil
it is.
Wicker Man.
Yes, it
but-
is. And so apparently the ending of the screenplay for Midsommar is like the very end is like with the temple burning and Danny's smiling maniacally. And it says, "It is horrible and it is beautiful."
Yes.
And that's the last line of the
nailed it.
screenplay. And I'm like, that translated very well. It is horrible and it is beautiful. And then I think we should talk about the impregnation scene.
But yes, let's talk about his rape scene because that's what it is.
Yeah. But I find it this scene is so interesting to me because I'm like, both people having sex like are being raped.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And
You're so right.
even though it's so horrible, it's also so funny. And I've just never in my life, and I hope never again, honestly, because it's like so unpleasant, but like I've never felt the way that scene makes me feel, where it's just like, it's funny and it's sickening, and I feel like they're like both being raped, but like it's presented like it's this beautiful like communal moment.
But it's so absurd.
Yeah.
And like
it is funny, like just the timing and like framing of some of the shots, even though it's still taking their like the characters like assault like seriously, like it does affect Christian.
So I was basically an anthropology major in college. I studied religious anthropology. I am one of these terrible people.
You're cheating.
I never did an actual ethnography. So no, I never did that. But I was not a grad student. I just did this in undergrad. But I could imagine like reading one of these ethnographies where it describes this beautiful ceremony. The community comes together, all the elder women, right, come together
Sharing
and they
their
sing.
experience and their wisdom, and they're there to support.
They sing and support, and they hold the hand of the young woman,
virgin,
the
yeah.
young virgin who's gonna like be the new mother. And I'm assuming all those are the women who've had children,
Yes.
who've
Yeah.
entered working age, right? Like they're the mothers of this tribe. And I could just like imagine reading this from the point of view of like the white guy who's writing the ethnography, and like described in such a way that's like beautiful, but then when you're like actually seeing it and the singing is like so discordant, the bodies are like real naked bodies, right?
Right. This is not a Hollywood.
No, this is like
Naked.
the naked body you see.
Nor is it
at
like
These
the
are just
gym.
women.
right. No, yeah, exactly. Nor is it. I was gonna say like a grotesque or like
Right.
They're not weird bodies. They're just very normal like aging women bodies.
If you've been
Which you don't usually
naked
see.
in like a gym locker room,
Have you ever been to a YMCA?
if you ever been to a
Yeah.
YMCA, you've basically seen this scene without what? Well, I was gonna
Well,
say
it
without the
depends
bridge,
which
but-
location.
which location.
And tell us about it. Email us at pod.
We'll forward it to our CIA handlers. But no, like it's funny because like from their perspective, I really do think they see this as like a beautiful thing. But
Right.
then us as the audience, we're seeing like the woman just like shoving his ass
Yeah.
to pump because he's
to get him to come because he's like
so like flabbergasted.
and he's on like 5 different drugs at this point, including smoke Viagra, including whatever shroom, DMT, whatever they gave him.
He's like non-functional. So many religions that we know have weird shit like this, but we don't even really think of it that way because it's our shit.
Right.
Right?
Like Catholicism is maybe a famous example where it's like the transubstantiation is like, you could see it as like a cannibal cult who's like literally thinks they're eating flesh. Which is literally like the belief.
There is good evidence that, in my opinion, proves that like a lot of Jewish anti-Semitic blood libel comes from projection. Because honestly, we don't be eating blood. Like that's famously something we don't do.
Right. That's true.
Like kosher law,
Right.
when you slaughter an animal, you have to remove all its blood. Whereas then we see, Catholics
because that's
who
what it's
truly
taught, is
believe, right, that
Right.
when you're drinking that blood, or that wine, it becomes literally the blood of Christ.
Yes,
right?
and those wafers are literally his flesh.
True, right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, and Jews are not free from this either. We have, like, super religious Jews have some weird sex practices too, right?
Sure.
And then you just think about, like, medieval times where it's, like, showing the
Yes.
bloody sheet.
Hanging the sheet out the window after the wedding night so
And
that
there
you can
are-
see the blood.
And I think there are still, like, some cultures where, like, the parents watch the sex to make sure it happened. Like, there's a lot
Yeah.
of weird stuff that goes
There is.
on. And so it's like whenever there's a cult thing, it's like, yes, that's weird, but also it's not that different from things that happen, like, even here in this country that
yeah.
happen just, like, at the church on the corner, allegedly.
Always just throw it in allegedly.
Yes, we have to. I see this movie as very critical of religion, especially because there's one aspect that doesn't make any sense for it to be there unless it's commenting on religion, which is the inbred child who is their prophet, who writes their Bibles, which are, interpreted, you can't see my air quotes, but you can feel them, by the elders. But it's like finger paint from
It's
an
arbitrary.
intentionally inbred child to be their prophet.
Who is isolated from the entire community, is like
lives in a
not
little, like-
taught to speak,
No.
is not socialized,
Right.
Like is just kept as a like
bear in a cage,
oracle,
basically.
yeah, like an oracle of Delphi, sort of like religious figure. Which again, yeah, like I agree with you. Like I think that when
So
he's
the religious text is random scribblings of an isolated, like, inbred, oracle child. Yes, because he's supposed to be like 10, I think.
and so he's pointing over there, but really he's pointing at us, which I
Yes.
think is what's effective about this. Because like
Right, is that it's like not even saying like this religion is fucked up. It's just like, if you really look at it and zoom out, or if it's foreign to you, then like everything in religion is kind of weird
yeah.
if you take a step outside.
I mean, these kinds of movies were really popular in like the 70s. These sort of like Cannibal Island, like these awful. You and I have seen so many of them.
Yes.
These like Italian, like voodoo cannibal movies.
Yeah, where like exoticism was very big. It was like going to some crazy uncivilized part of the world and you've got to survive because they're doing weird stuff over there.
Yeah, and they're just like brown people that they paid to like oh, I don't know, just like wave this spear, and like the actors like don't even
Yeah.
know what they're being a part of.
I don't want to go too far into it. So I'm going to save it for our Cannibal Holocaust episode.
God, I'm not making Samantha watch Cannibal
I'm
Holocaust.
making her watch it.
Okay, well that's gonna be
Okay.
a while from now.
It's
But
got
like,
a beautiful score.
Okay, well, you got me.
it's so this is like something that again I think he's like playing off of that genre in a way that's like showing like there's a grotesque nature to having those movies where you're othering when really like picking like beautiful blonde Swedish people, which are people that like Americans love to like I don't know, like fetishize and fantasize. Like we like to think like I think like a lot of white Americans like to think like, oh, they're just like us.
Yes.
Right? Whereas like when you're thinking about like, oh, the hidden secret tribes, like Alan Quatermain type stories, like the old colonial British literature was like really bad about this.
Yes.
There's like, I think he's just sort of like showing the hypocrisy because like
I agree.
this is stuff that like we do too.
Yeah, and I think and he's not subtle about anything really, Ari Aster, but I'm like, he also named one of his lead characters Christian,
Oh yeah.
That's true.
which is, I feel like, such an Ari Aster move
The
where it's like,
Christian
he is
sacrifice.
working on such a deep and profound level, but he's also like making dumb jokes right on the surface. But I think sometimes they're missed because like you're caught up in the like all the deep thoughts and like the beautiful aesthetics and fucked up shit and like someone's head getting crushed by a hammer. But I'm like, there's just some like silly, obvious stuff in there.
Oh yeah.
And I really like that about him. I really feel like his movies have something for everyone.
I mean, it should have been a hint to us that he could make a really funny comedy.
Yes.
Because like,
Especially the more I rewatch Midsommar, I'm like, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's not a comedy, but like there's some funny shit. Mark sees a girl that's kind of flirting with him. She walks in, she's like, the children are watching Austin Powers in the house if you'd like to join. You just don't expect this Swedish cult to be watching Austin Powers.
all right, well, anyone have? I guess we have to say, is it gay? Is it loathe?
Ooh,
So I
I'll
think
let you
this
go.
is painfully hetero in that the sex is to procreate.
Yeah.
Like there's even the couples in this are not sexy. Like it's not one of those horror movies where like there's like a couple and they're being like promiscuous and that's why they get killed. Like
Yeah.
the couples in this, like the main couple, clearly they don't like even really touch each other. The British couple,
It's really awkward when they do touch, actually. Anytime Christian and Danny touch each other is like, oh, please don't.
It's awful.
Yeah.
And the British couple, they're just not really around enough. Like that's
Yeah.
not why
Yeah.
they get killed.
No.
Right? It's because they get freaked out at the Adestupa.
Well, I think they were always going to be sacrifices.
Oh yeah. Well, they're, as you said, they're not cut out for.
They don't have what it takes.
Yeah, they don't have the right makings of a cult.
But with all that sun, wouldn't you want people with a little melanin? Wouldn't it help? It's so sunny there. I want another sunscreen distributor. That's what I'm
I know.
going
I'm
to
like,
ask
they
Ari
weren't
Aster.
nearly burnt enough
Yeah.
to represent how much sun is there.
I couldn't do this cult because it's too sunny. Like if I showed up,
Is that what
literally.
you loathe? Is that what you loathe? The
That's-
sun?
No, I love it for.
The smug aura? Because that sun, that's the smuggest sun on the
I
mural in the
could-
beginning. He's like,
I have to imagine myself in this situation because, as I said, I've done shit like this before. I went on a cult brainwashing trip. I've been to cults when I was an undergrad anthropology type student in college, like, or not cults, whatever.
yeah.
Tomato, potato.
Yeah.
But like, I would say yes to this trip, right? But if I got
I think
there,
I would say yes to the trip.
Yeah.
It
right?
sounds awesome.
It sounds awesome. But I feel like when I got there and they're like, we're spending a day outside in the sun doing mushrooms, I'd be like, I'm going home.
I would also be thinking about the ticks.
Or even just like, oh, we're all just gonna like sleep on the grass for a day.
With this back?
Like I could not eat one of those meals. Besides them being gross, there's no shade. They're just sitting there for what seems like 15
I do
minutes.
hate eating like outside when it's hot.
It's the worst.
Ugh.
Oh, I like to eat on my patio.
Okay,
in some shade,
you're
yeah.
also black.
Thank you.
Like,
And the patio like has an awning over it.
and a fan.
Yeah.
okay, so
And
with
a
those
Yeah, that's a little different.
with those three things,
Yes.
being black, having a patio, and having a fan,
great.
none of those are things Danny has, and none of those are things that I would have had.
Yeah, maybe think about Danny next time before you say something
I
so
also
privileged.
light my
Yeah.
mosquito incense, so
Check.
fully covered.
Your privilege.
Sorry.
What are you guys gay?
Yeah, like so hetero.
It's
It's like
very-
the very like platonic ideal of comp het, compulsory heterosexuality, where it's just like,
Yeah.
that's what we do in this society, and there's absolutely no other avenue.
It's not a place for
Yeah.
non-binary queers.
No, it
that
is
don't
not.
want kids
It is a place for cis, straight, white people
to play like a very specific role.
to play like homesteading.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not like
literally.
trad wife, obviously, because it's
Yeah.
like cult, but I mean, it's very like,
Sister wives.
yeah, disturbingly heterosexual. It's like 0 crushed heads out of 72.
70, oh,
I'll
yeah.
say
Yeah,
that
yeah. Oh, yeah.
if the raw herring is gay, it misses the mouth.
If deep throating some raw herring is wrong, then I don't want to be straight.
Well, I'm gonna also say zero gay.
Okay.
And I Loathe Nothing. I think this was one of my, on our first episode.
Yeah, you mentioned
one of my
Yeah.
faves.
like I don't know if I would say this is like gonna be everybody's favorite movie, but like this is a good movie. Like even
Yeah.
if you're not into horror, you're not into
Yeah, well, so my father, who does not watch horror, I mean, except what my mom or I make him watch, saw this. I think it was like in a hotel or something. It was on, and he sat and watched the whole thing. It was like, I loved it and I hated it and I never want to see it again. But I'm glad I watched it.
Yeah.
And I think it.
and that could be you.
And that could be you, or you could be
One of
like me,
us.
and you're like, I've seen it like 5 times now,
It's the one I rewatched the most. Like,
and like it's still in my Blu-ray player. And like after this, I might go back and like finish from where I left off.
valid.
Do it.
Where
I'm Samantha. Oh.
You can find us on Instagram at Queer and Loathing Pod. You can email us at queerandloathingpod@gmail.com. Not at, whatever. You know how emails work. And then we have Letterboxd. I am Hater Tot.
I am 666 bitch.
I'm Samantha.
And that's Queer and Loathing, folks.
Yeah, that's
That's
all
it.
she wrote, and by she I mean Ari Aster. Yeah. Well, until next time, I'm queer.
I'm Loathing.
And I'm Samantha.
Skål, Midsommar.